Just a second. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our Lunch and Learn in November. I know it's very quiet for everyone right now. Cricket's probably out there for all the things happening this week and next week. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. Our topic for this special event is the Better FAFSA updates with our wonderful friends and partners, NCAN, the National College Attainment Network, and we do have a special speaker here, Bill, and he will be our special presenter. Let me see if I can get everything working well. This is kind of the agenda for everything. We will do a quick icebreaker, announcements. Dr. Murphy will help me with some of that, and then we will let Bill kind of take over the full event. He is the main speaker for today. No special pop-ups, and then we'll just talk about what we'll be going over next week, next spring a little bit. So that's the agenda. So let's go into the icebreaker. You can jump out and say some of your thoughts, or you can drop it in the chat. I would love to know if you have a favorite holiday food or just a general favorite food. Feel free to drop that in the chat or take yourself off mute and just give your first name and shout out what that might be. My favorite holiday drink is just that cider, hot cider. So it's not really a food, it's more of a drink, but I love hot cider. So let's see what those are. I'll read some out. People love tamales. I love tamales. They're amazing. Yes, pumpkin pies, stuffing. Oh my goodness. Sugar cookies, peppermint. So yes, we do have a good amount of pumpkin flavors right now. If you guys have a Trader Joe's near you, they have some really good pumpkin seasonal things. They have a great autumn sauce out there. So definitely check that out. Oh my gosh, I need to find someone who makes tamales. Would love that. So yeah, a lot of pies right now. Perfect. Any foods that are a little different out there? My sister's Ethiopian, so we'll do Ethiopian food probably right before Christmas or after Christmas for us to celebrate one of her holidays. But yeah, so we do a lot of stirred spiced meats right after Christmas or right before Christmas. It kind of depends on how we plan it as a family. Okay, cool. And now my second icebreaker is, as we let more people in, any unique FSA ID or FAFSA events that you might be planning for spring 2024. If you have a really great one, feel free to drop it in the chat or maybe a link to your event so people can get some ideas. Or you can just give us a quick shout out. Oh, I like that. A pancake breakfast. But no, definitely I know January, February will probably be a busy time of events coming up. And I will actually give another call out to learn more about the events happening, or even nonprofit events. I know College Depot, College Connect Tempe might have some really great events out there, virtual or in person, that your students can participate. So definitely take a look at their websites. And we will move on. If you have some other ideas of really great events that you might be doing, feel free to drop that in the chat. I know this is a great time for us to learn from each other, specifically with this changing of the calendar season. I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Murphy for a minute.
So, and Bill, jump in if I don't do this announcement justice. But we have had breaking news from FSA that the 2024-2025 FAFSA will be released by December 31st. And here we are. So kind of the same information that we've had before in terms of a release date. We're just kind of keeping our fingers crossed. It could be any point between now and December 31st. I think kind of what we knew to begin with. And we'll just kind of all sit and pray together that it's before the 31st. About it on the announcement front.
Thanks, Dr. Murphy.
Perfect. Let me share my screen again. I went to the news the news alert we got. Here we are. We're back to the scheme of things, back into everything. Another announcement, just in case you haven't heard of the Arizona College Arizona College Access Network that Dr. Murphy runs, feel free to check it out. I know they have some great courses coming up in January, and I won't spoil that. If you want to jump in and say anything, Dr. Murphy, feel free.
Sure, absolutely. So again, if you're not already a member of NCAN, please take the time to join. It's free, no risk, all reward. As a member of NCAN, you have access to our CAP training courses, so our College Access Professional Training courses. They are free to participants during the 2023-2024 school year and summer. There will likely be a nominal fee associated next school year. But one announcement that I did want to make, our spring courses are open for registration. So feel free to hop in. Those are going to be our 4 financial aid courses, as well as 2 middle school specific courses. But a new kind of breaking announcement, if you will, is that all of our CAP courses are now certified for graduate credit with Lindenwood University, which is a brick and mortar institution. It's an HLC accredited institution in Missouri. And individuals who are interested in gaining graduate credit for salary advancement within their K-12 district have the opportunity of paying $75 per course to generate a graduate transcript, which is incredibly inexpensive. In addition, if you are in a position as a school counselor where you have some deficiencies in terms of your certification, these graduate courses will also be honored through ADE to remove those deficiencies for those who are trying to earn their school counselor K-12 certificates with options B or C. And if there's questions about that, happy to answer those offline, and I'll be sending out some kind of news alerts in relation to that, so it's a little bit more clear. But super excited about that and providing that opportunity for educators in the state.
Apologies, I spilled a little water on my key track and it trying to wipe it off. It went a couple slides ahead. So you guys got a little sneak peek. Thank you, Dr. Murphy, for that. That sounds really cool. I'm really excited for those FAFSA courses coming up in your program in the spring. I think those will be very, very popular. So we'll move on. I do have a couple cool announcements. I was taking a look at some student alerts or student opportunities, and I found 2 really cool ones just by some of the events that I've attended. So I wanted to share them with you. If you already know about them, that's great. If you know of some really great other opportunities at some of our community colleges or universities that you feel like should get a recognition, feel free to send me those. I know so much is happening. We all have our different pools of information, but I wanted to share 2 that I saw recently. And the first one was with ASU, the Next Generation Service Corps. It works for transfer students and first-time students. It's really interesting. I know we had them in our old version of Lunch and Learns last year come and speak a little bit, but we'll have some more opportunities to give more announcements. But I wanted to put this on your radar because it looks like their application just opened this October 15th. Here's just a quick little screenshot of their flyer. You can contact them at psa.asu.edu. There's also a little QR code here of just the general application process. Big priority deadline is January 15th still. They have this track for incoming freshmen, a 4-year program track, and then a 2-year track for transfer students. So thought I would give you a little taste of what that was. If you click on the little QR code or this website when I send out the slide deck for today, you will be able to explore more about this program. Like I said, just giving you a sneak peek, just a little something to put on your radar. If you know of anyone, a student who might be interested or this might be a good fit for them, feel free to share. Another one that I thought was really interesting, GCU has this trades program. Some of these are free programs, so definitely take a look at it. I met someone at a tabling event that I got to attend with College Knowing and Going and NCAN. just a couple weeks ago, and it was deeply fascinating just talking to that rep, learning about some of the things that they're doing for some vocational opportunities for students who maybe aren't thinking a university, but would love to do something a little bit more trade or more career-led programs. So these were two unique programs that I saw that they were offering. And then the little QR code here takes you to the pre-apprenticeship electrician program. And then the other one about the CNC mechanics. I don't really know very much about that. These aren't things I usually talk about, but I wanted to share these with everyone just so you guys could get a little sneak peek. And then if you guys have questions, you can reach out to these two institutions and see if they're good fits or information that you would love to know about for your students or in your field. That's all I have there about some of our student opportunities, but I do have just a little thing for my program, Ask Benji. Our team would love to get nudges, to send out nudges to our students. We would love to send them things about FAFSA events coming up. If you are hosting one, a college or career event, as long as it's free, Benji will be able to promote it. We would love to get some of those in. We know next year is going to be busy, so I wanted to just put a little bug in your ear so we can get some of those announcements or alerts that we could share with our students. We have about 34,000 students in our chatbot. And if you don't know what Ask Benji is, it's an AI FAFSA college career chatbot. And we send out messages to our senior students 2 times a week at the most. Usually it's a message a week. And we love to give them updates about things and free resources that are happening in their community, in the state, or at local partner organizations so they can take part of that. So if you don't know what Ask Benji is, feel free to reach out to me. I will be sending out an email after this event with this slide deck, all the key information that Dr. Murphy and I have talked about, and then I'll also include the slide deck from our special speaker. But I did just want to get this out there. So if you know of the events, feel free to let me know because I know some really cool things are coming up and we just don't want our students to miss out on them. And that's all I have for my stuff. That's all I have for announcements. I know why everyone's here. It's not just to hear me talk. It is to learn more about the Better FAFSA updates for the new application year. Our special speaker is Bill. I'm going to let Bill start taking over. I'll let him announce himself and start sharing his screen. But I'll let Bill just give a quick little introduction while we get him set up.
Super. Thank you so much, Graciela. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me. It's great to be in front of you, all of you today. Let's make sure I can do the whole screen sharing experience. So far, so good. Oh boy. Oh, I don't want to rename the file right now on camera. That's not good. Okay. Are we looking okay? All right. Super. All right. All right, so I am here to talk about getting ready for Better FAFSA, specifically in Arizona, but I guess everywhere else as well. And we have a better sense of how much time we have to get ready for the Better FAFSA. We have a better sense of that this morning than we did, I don't know, 12 hours ago or so. My name is Bill DeBaun. I'm the Senior Director of Data and Strategic Initiatives here at the National College Attainment Network in Washington, D.C., and I'm super excited to be spending this lunch hour with you. I see some familiar names and faces here in the chat, but if you have questions about anything in my presentation or anything about NCAN, I guess, or anything else really, you're welcome to email me. I wouldn't put my email address here if I didn't hope that you would use it. And if I can't answer your question, then I am happy to connect you with one of my talented colleagues who probably can. I've been at NCAN for about 10 years. I came to NCAN as kind of a data and evaluation guy here, working with a lot of our community-based organizations about how to measure students' outcomes and how to think about kind of program models that make sure that we are actually moving the needle on students' post-secondary access and attainment outcomes. My role has shifted a little bit. Now I am increasingly looking at kind of our systems change bucket of work. And we're trying to find strategies, tools, resources, approaches, practices, policies, all of these nouns in this bucket that really kind of change things at scale for districts schools, charter networks, students, and families. If you are not familiar with NCAN, we have been around for more than 25 years. We're a national nonprofit organization, and we represent members across the country who are interested in assisting students with achieving their post-secondary access and attainment goals. We are a real melting pot as an organization, right? I mean, I think historically, most folks know us as kind of college access programs, community-based organizations, but I would say that over the past few years, we have really diversified what the NCAN membership looks like. We have a really growing body of K-12 districts and schools, lots of state agencies, state college access and attainment networks, philanthropies, businesses, colleges, universities. And so this melting pot really is all trying to pull in the same direction of making sure that students can reach their post-secondary access and attainment goals. We largely do this work through three big buckets. One is we build field capacity, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that today with Better FAFSA piece, right? But we want to make our members the best versions of themselves that they can be, right? We do that through training, do it through a national conference, we do it through webinars. We do it by you popping up in my inbox and saying, I really want to learn more about X, Y, and Z. And then I give you the information that you need to know more about X, Y, and Z. We also advocate at the federal and increasingly the state levels, right? To try to advocate on behalf of our members and on behalf of students, right? We're big fans of doubling the Pell Grant, for example, right? We have been real advocates for reducing the pernicious effects of FAFSA verification for years. We have been talking with federal student aid about how the Better FAFSA rollout, right, can be less onerous for programs and students and families, right? And we have been pushing, for example, for kind of like timely notification about the release date. At the state level, you know, we're always talking with states about specific policies like universal FAFSA, for example, right? But also about just like the need to invest in higher education, right? We talk a lot about dual enrollment policies, for example. Just all the different kinds of policy barriers that exist out there that can trip students up from pursuing their post-secondary pathways. We want to get in front of that from a policy change standpoint. And this last bucket is kind of where I live, and is making sure that every stakeholder in the field kind of knows how they can be helpful in assisting students, right? That they have the tools and best practices that, you know, everyone across the field is getting or developing, right? And that they know who their partners in the field are, right? So if we're looking across state lines, the state agencies know who their partners are. If we're looking within states, so we're highlighting kind of like best practice at the district and school level, and just trying to make sure that we are increasing the collaboration that we have. Because a theme that you will hear a lot today from me is that we really are all in this together and we need to be pulling in the same direction. Okay, so let me give you two caveats before I jump in on this. One, right, is that I am not a financial aid administrator. Okay, let me just put that out there, right? And so if you have very specific technical questions, it is entirely possible that I will not know the answer to them, right? But it is also entirely possible I will take that question and your email address, and I will get you an answer within the next 24 hours, right? I will make that commitment to you. If it is an answerable question, let me put it out there, right? Let me just put that caveat out there too. The other thing that I want to say is that I don't intend for this to be a full-on Better FAFSA training, right? I want to highlight some of the big changes that are forthcoming with the Better FAFSA, right? I want to take some questions about things that, you know, kind of the big ticket items here that are going to look and feel different than what you are probably used to on the FAFSA side. But we have lots of training opportunities at NCAN. They extend kind of beyond an hour, right? We've got a whole like training toolkit online. We've got like webinar recordings. We're still doing live webinars. And, you know, there is more information, I think, to really get the full gamut of the Better FAFSA, then we're going to be able to cram into the lunch hour here. So let me just offer you those two caveats right from the top. Okay, let me also just talk about the FAFSA. So here's my thing about the FAFSA. The thing that I've been telling audiences recently about the FAFSA, and I'm getting kind of mixed reviews on it, so I'm gonna float it out here and see how it goes, right? Is that we actually maybe spend too much time thinking about the FAFSA just for its own sake. Practitioners, policymakers, the public, right? FAFSA is really important, right? I would never try to argue any other way, right? I mean, FAFSA is the key that unlocks the door to federal and state financial aid that makes post-secondary pathways affordable. But if we had policy and practice that only juiced our FAFSA completion numbers, we wouldn't be satisfied and we wouldn't be reaching our goals, right? Because the FAFSA kind of like is just like situated in a whole like college and career readiness continuum, right? What the FAFSA is really good at telling us, right, is what our activities upstream, how successful we have been in generating demand for post-secondary pathways among our students, right? When we get to senior year and we start looking at high school senior FAFSA completion numbers, it gives us a good sense of like post-secondary education demand in our schools, in our districts, in our states, in our nation overall, right? So it's a really good leading indicator, and it's so valuable because like we get that data every week, right? Every week there's new FAFSA completion data rolling in, and we can see like I'm a little bit behind here, like I need to put some more effort into this, right? I'm gonna have this FAFSA like completion night, right? I'm gonna see if I get some immediate return on investment, right, from my activities on FAFSA completion. Like that's super valuable. But I guess what I would just say, from like a 10,000-foot level, right, is that I don't think that FAFSA itself, just like increasing FAFSA completion, necessarily gets you the post-secondary enrollments and attainment that we really want. We still need to have systems that support students when they get to campus. We still need to have systems that support students in the college application process. We still need to have systems that help students to matriculate. We have to have systems that keep students persisting semester after semester and year to year, right? And so if we put too many eggs in the FAFSA basket, right, we really do run the risk, I think, of like putting blinders on about the other things that our students need to be successful, okay? Now, let me flip the other part of this. The FAFSA is also extremely important because we know that this year, in particular, access to the FAFSA is going to be different than usual. We're going to be trying to fit 15 pounds of FAFSA completions in a 5-pound bag, you know? So that will be tricky. You know, when we talk about FAFSA completion over the first 52 weeks of the cycle, 50% of high school seniors complete between October and December usually, right? So we are pushing a significant chunk of the high school senior like population for those FAFSAs to get completed into the spring now, along with all the other students who would normally be completing in the spring, right? And so there are a lot of seniors who do already have that demand for post-secondary education and who do desperately need the financial aid that is unlocked by completing a FAFSA, right? And so I do understand that for those students in this year, right, under this very exigent circumstance that we have, right, that there is a lot of focus on the FAFSA, and I do understand that, right? So there are kind of two sides to this coin. Dr. Murphy already kind of spilled the beans on this, right? So I will put, I used the biggest font that was legally permissible in Washington, D.C. For this slide. And so, you know, FSA has put out here that the FAFSA will open by December 31st. You know, it says by, we are treating it as on. Okay, the language that went out from Kim Cook and NCAN CEO this morning is that we're recommending that members treat this as on. Okay, this is just my personal opinion. I mean, this is my personal phrasing. I would not be holding my breath about a miraculous early opening to the FAFSA that comes before December 31st, right? The other piece, though, is that is also in the electronic announcement, is that post-secondary institutions won't receive the ICERs from FAFSAs that are completed until the end of January, right? And so when we think about the importance of receiving an ICER for generating financial aid packages, and we think about the need for higher ed institutions to load those ICERs into their systems, to test things out, to make, to work out all the bugs, right? Especially with kind of like a new system, right? It may be that we don't start seeing students get packaged until, I don't know, mid-February or so, right? So this December 31st does give us kind of a more concrete, firmer date, although it's one that we were kind of anticipating in general, right? We knew it had to open in December 2023. But there is some kind of knock-on effect here about where there will be delays to ICERs, and that has effects on financial aid offices and on when students get packaged, and then on the decision-making process, right? So I want to highlight those things too. Okay. Let's talk about the FAFSA real quick. Zoom out from Better FAFSA, and then I will dive back into Better FAFSA specifics. If you have joined me for a webinar before, you probably have seen this chart, but if not, it might become a new favorite one for you. What we're showing here, right, is the association between FAFSA completion and immediate college enrollment. And we're looking at it by school district poverty quintile, right? So what we see here is that FAFSA completion for students in higher poverty school districts has a much larger association with immediate college enrollment, right? We see that at the district level here, we see it at the state level here, where the x-axis is June 30th FAFSA completion percentage for a state, and then the y-axis is the percent of high school graduates who immediately go to college. And you can see, right, even if you're not mathy, I mean, I'm not actually super mathy, but if you're not, mathy, you can see kind of the upward trend, right? We can see here that as June 30th FAFSA completion percentage goes up, so does immediate college enrollment. We have used kind of FAFSA, again, as I was talking about earlier, as a leading indicator for post-secondary enrollment for a very long time. We can see, and we saw through the pandemic, right, when year over year FAFSA changes, when we see the percent change in year over year FAFSA's kind of shift, we see kind of a commensurate shift in first fall enrollment for those graduating classes, right? So this is kind of the canary in the coal mine, right? I'm very glad that for the class of 2022 and 2023, we have seen positive year over year percent changes. For the class of 2022, we saw first fall enrollment go back up for the class of 2022. I suspect that we will see the same thing happen for the class of 2023, and I'm very encouraged by that. But I just want to kind of highlight like the strength of FAFSA completion as a leading indicator. And that's true, I would suspect, at the school level, district, state, at any reasonable level. We also know, though, that FAFSA completion is often deeply inequitable. Unfortunately, like it is a truth in way too many places in this country that students who would most benefit from the financial aid unlocked by the FAFSA are also the least likely to complete it. And we see that here, and this is fall 2009 ninth graders. This would have been the high school class of 2013. We see here that the lowest fifth of students by socioeconomic status, right, were 7 percentage points more likely not to complete the FAFSA than the highest fifth. Let me show that to you in a different way. This is at the state level, and each of these circles in the vertical bands here is a state. And you can see that as we step up here from the highest poverty to the lowest poverty school districts, the average FAFSA completion rate is also increasing, right? So we kind of collectively as a field, as practitioners who care very much about this, need to understand that even though the students that we're working with most often would benefit disproportionately, they are also disproportionately not completing the FAFSA. There's a real mismatch there, right? And so that kind of fact has always been like a North Star for NCAN in making sure that the students who can most benefit are also getting the assistance that they need to get connected with financial aid. Not only do we know that kind of not completing the FAFSA is connected with not enrolling at high rates, we also know that not completing the FAFSA kind of leaves money on the table nationally. For the class of 2022, students who didn't complete the FAFSA but would have been eligible for a Pell Grant left about $3.6 billion in Pell Grants on the table. And in Arizona, that figure was $101 million. Now, the piece that is really eye-popping about this, because I as you might suspect, right, I do presentations like this for different kinds of states. This is by far the largest percentage that I have ever seen for this slide. Okay, because Arizona's state financial aid programs, I'm gonna tread carefully here. They're relatively less generous than they could be. The money that's left on the table federally would make a really large difference in terms of the percent of the state financial aid program. Okay, so completing those FAFSAs, especially for students in Arizona, making sure that students who are Pell Grant eligible kind of get access to that Pell Grant is very valuable in absolute terms and disproportionately valuable in Arizona. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how the class of 2023 did in terms of FAFSA completion. This data all comes from NCAN's FAFSA tracker. Data comes out every Friday at the school level, and we pretty up the federal student aid data in a very nice interactive Tableau dashboard. Okay, so let's talk about Arizona. These numbers are through June 30th. Let me hide my face here so I can actually get to the thing here. Okay, so Arizona has really good news on this front, right? The year-over-year percent change in Arizona on FAFSA completion was higher than the nation's overall, which is awesome. Right? Give yourselves a big pat on the back on that front. There is still considerable room to grow, though, in terms of absolute performance, in terms of absolute percent of Arizona seniors completing, right? About a 14 percentage point gap there for the class of 2023. And so you can kind of see this tale of two stories, tale of two metrics. Arizona on the percentage of seniors completing a FAFSA quite far down on the ranking there, but the 5.8% that you have in terms of year-over-year growth represents pretty good momentum, right? That is something that you can continue to build on, right, and start to climb up that percent of seniors completing, leaderboard. And I, for one, would love to see you do that and to provide any assistance that I can to do that on that front. And just to kind of give you a longitudinal look of like how this has looked over the past 7 classes or so, right? The blue bar here is United States percent of seniors completing by about June 30th, and then Arizona is in the orange bars, right? So we see, unfortunately, a pretty pretty consistent gap, although you've been within 10 percentage points multiple times over the past 6 or 7 years. So again, I think there is an opportunity here to go up and to improve. All right, let's talk about some FAFSA changes now that we have gotten through the fun slides. Let's talk about the Better FAFSA. Just to be super clear, because I have gotten this conversation, gotten this question a couple times when I've been talking about the Better FAFSA, I am not editorializing necessarily when I say that. Okay. This is not a value judgment or normative one that I am making, right? The FSA is putting this under the auspices of Better FAFSA, right? And so we are kind of like, we're adopting that branding, or we're going along with it, right? But I guess the reason I bring this up is that I have gotten asked a lot of times when I do presentations like this, well, what do you think is so much better about it? And I do think there are things that are better. Let me be super clear about that. But just to be super clear where the marketing comes from on that front. Okay, so Better FAFSA changes. All right, these are some of the big ticket items here. All right, we'll walk through many of these, right? Just give an overview. Again, I'm not going to go like into the nitty gritty, like super down detailed level on this. I'm happy to answer questions toward the end about anything where you feel like I glossed over too quickly. But here are your big ticket items. FAFSA did not open on October 1st and will be opening in December, number 1. Okay, we have a lot of new terminology that we need to adjust, right? If you, for example, are a big fan of the phrase expected family contribution, I have some bad news for you. You're gonna have to drop that, okay? The FSA ID is required, right? I even underlined it there so that you know that I'm really serious about it. Anyone who is going to participate in completing a FAFSA is going to need an FSA ID this year, okay? We are introducing kind of verbiage around contributors to FAFSAs, and also the idea of consent, bringing over consent from the IRS to pull in your tax data into the FAFSA to populate the FAFSA. Along with contributors, we're going to have role-based completion, right? Gone will be the days where one kind of FAFSA filer could see all of their parents' information, for example, in the form, right? This is now kind of walled off by your role, and you will only be able to see the pieces that you are supposed to see throughout the process. Okay? There are some independent student impacts here, both in terms of unusual circumstances and in terms of provisional independent status, and that will, I think, be a net improvement and give kind of financial aid administrators and offices kind of another tool in their toolbox to help meet students with unusual circumstances really kind of where they are, right? To make either professional judgment easier, or just kind of provisionally provide independent status so that students can keep moving forward through the financial aid process. I already mentioned that EFC is going away and it will be replaced by the Student Aid Index, right? So start getting your FAFSA vocab flashcards together with that one. And then there's also a new way to calculate Pell Grants that I want to go over just briefly. I see a fair number of things in the chat here, actually. Let me or Jennifer, Graciela, do you guys want to look and just
last
tell me?
Question we got was, will there still be an SAR student aid report? And I know that that's changed in terms of terminology.
Yeah. Oh gosh, and now I'm going to
I'm blanking. It's like a student summary or
yeah,
a submission summary.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Summary is in it. Thank you. Oh, Lizette, thank you very much. Yes, the FAFSA submission summary. That's great. Lizette, I certainly owe you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions we need to?
We have we've seen it will open December 2023 for a while, but we still don't have an exact date, which we're now kind of leaning towards the 31st. Is this worrisome considering December is 2.5 weeks away?
It would be pretty hard for me to say no to you, I think. Yeah, I mean, I have some, I have some concerns, right? I mean, there has been a lot of uncertainty for practitioners and students and families about the timeline here, right? And so, yeah, that is a little bit worrisome. I mean, like I said, the language that came out today is that the 2024-25 FAFSA will open by December 31st. We are interpreting that as on December 31st, right? I have no real expectation, no real or reasonable expectation that it will open earlier miraculously, right? So is this worrisome? Yes, I think there are definitely implications to this. I will also say, though, that there are things that we can be doing right now, right? And it sounds like you all in Arizona have been doing a lot of them in terms of like setting up FSA IDs, right? Trying to connect students with external scholarships, maybe identifying students with unusual circumstances, right? So that flagging them in your system so that you can either have a conversation with them to let them know, hey, the FAFSA is going to look a little bit different for students with your circumstance this year. The FAFSA isn't open yet, but here's the information that I can tell you. There is some groundwork that we can be laying right now that will smooth the way once the FAFSA actually opens.
One more question, Bill. Will the FAFSA submission summary be generated immediately like the SAR was in the past?
My understanding is that yes, that you'll be able to see it on the submission summary page after completing. I think this is after everyone signs, though, because you have to have everyone signing and bringing the information in. This is a little bit different in the sense that so you're not completing, you're not filling in fields in a form now at this point with the new FAFSA, right? With the Better FAFSA. Part of the reason that the FSA ID is required and that consent is required, right, is that the legislation now requires, Department of Education to populate the FAFSA as much as possible with information from the IRS, right? And so this is not a place like where in the old FAFSA where you could fill in all the fields and then sign it, right, and have parents sign it with their PIN and then immediately get a SAR. We need to have all the contributors sign the Better FAFSA so that the information can be pulled over. And it's like at that point, that's when the FAFSA submission summary can be generated. This is not the only bite of the apple for Q&A. I will keep coming back to it, but I will forge ahead for right now. Okay. So the big delay here, right, is that this is the most massive overhaul to the FAFSA system in like 40 years. This is not only changing, kind of bringing in, like forging the connection between Department of Education and FSA and the IRS, but it also is kind of changing just the back end data infrastructure here, right? And so that has been a big IT project, honestly. And so that is one of the things that has delayed this whole opening. Some of the implications, you're asking me about, is this worrisome? Yeah, I mean, there is an implication here, right? We have a condensed time frame for completion. Verifications will still occur in this FAFSA cycle. We know that students often need assistance with moving through the verification process. And so now we have lopped off, 3 months essentially of support that we're able to provide to students. This is not relevant for Arizona, right? But we know that in states that have adopted FAFSA completion as a graduation requirement, right, that you could see a lot more waivers in those states, right, that need to be required, or that need to be made so that students can graduate from high school. And obviously this has been a big headache for colleges who have priority deadlines and early decision programming. Okay. So we talked about terminology changes, and we are doing a little bit of fall cleaning here. So the things that are out now, right? Parent 1 and Parent 2 in the forum, the SAR, EFC, the IRS data retrieval tool, and household size. This is also a big change that practitioners and students and families should be aware of, right? That household size is no longer factoring in for the size of your student aid index. In their place, we have a whole other slew of new terminology, and this is going to require, right, that your print and your web resources are all updated to reflect this new language, right? We're going to have to kind of work these things out of vocabulary. There's a strong muscle memory here, especially if you've been completing the old FAFSA for a very long time. And I was half joking. I was literally only half joking about the vocab flashcards, right? Because I have had to kind of do something similar here on this side to work this out of my verbiage. So the big change here, right, is that everyone needs an FSA ID, right? I will say the FSA ID process itself is not changing very much. It's just that we need everyone to get, an FSA ID. And some of the big changes, right, are that we will have to have multi-factor authentication here to verify, and authenticate FSA IDs once they are created. So you can see here that you'll have to have an email address tied to an FSA ID. In two-parent households where you have married filing jointly status, you can just have. If you're married filing jointly, you only need to have one FSA ID. If you're filing separately, you're going to need to have 2 separate FSA IDs for the parents. As you probably have figured out from your FSA ID creation programming, this is not kind of an immediate turnover, right? Once we're creating FSA IDs. This is kind of a 2-stage piece. We need to have events where students and families are creating FSA IDs, and then their FSA IDs get authenticated. The other big change is that parents without Social Security numbers will also need to create FSA IDs. Okay, there's no signature page. The signature page has gone away, right? And so there is a new process that will allow for parents without Social Security numbers to create FSA IDs. Don't intend to read all of this to you. This deck, I think, will be a helpful resource after this webinar, right, that you can go back and check out here. But this page has who will need to create an FSA ID. Obviously, every student will need to do that. And then depending on either dependency status or married status, spouses and parents or step parents may need to complete FSA ID as well. Here is what the account creation page looks like right now. This looks pretty similar to how it has looked in the past, but just flagging for the I don't have a Social Security number checkbox on the bottom here, right, which is going to open up that new non-Social Security number pathway for FSA ID creation. And this is what that flow kind of looks like, all right? So if a user has a Social Security number and they go through the Social Security Administration match, within 3 days or so, Social Security Administration matches it, and then you've got authenticated FSA ID. You're ready to go in the process for filling out the FAFSA. For users who do not get through Social Security Administration match, they will need to either update their information or contact the Social Security Administration. We suspect that will be a fairly small part of the pie here. For users who don't have Social Security numbers, they will first go to something called knowledge-based verification. This is one of the places where we still don't know exactly what this process looks like. I don't really have screenshots for you, but if you have gone through, I don't know, like a loan application, for example, right, and you wind up getting these knowledge-based verification questions about which of these addresses do you still live in, or live at, which of these was a make or model of car that you used to have, right? All of this is kind of going through the credit bureaus through TransUnion. And so users will have a chance to verify their identity based on knowledge-based questions. They get through that process, then they have an authenticated user ID or a verified user ID. They're ready to go for the FAFSA process. If you don't get through knowledge-based verification, then we have a place where there needs to be some manual proofing of identification and documents, right? We also don't have super great insight into that process yet right now in terms of what the turnaround time is going to be, documents, those kinds of pieces, right? But there will be kind of if you don't get through knowledge-based verification, going through ID proofing, all in service of trying to verify your user identity on your FSA ID so that you are ready to go ahead and complete the FAFSA. Okay, so we also know that we're shifting to this language about contributors, and this is different than parent 1 and parent 2. So anyone who's putting information into a FAFSA is a contributor, right? Students, parents, spouses, and there's kind of a workflow to determine which contributors need to be putting information into a FAFSA. There's a good parent wizard here, right? Are your parents married to each other? Yes or no? Do the parents live together? Yes or no? Did one parent provide more financial support than the other over the past 12 months? And in the circumstance where both parents provided an exact equal amount of financial support, they can select no here. And then, has the parent you identified in the previous question remarried? If a student answers yes to that, they will need to provide information for the parent and the step parent. If not, they're going to provide information about the parent who provided greater financial support only on the FAFSA. Okay, so this part of the wizard, hopefully we'll walk through pretty clean. I know I just did that pretty quickly. I'm realizing I have about 10 minutes left and a lot of slides. So I will do my best to get through this in an expeditious manner. All right, consent. All right, so the consent piece in terms of FAFSA is, again, consent to bring over your tax information from the IRS, right? Gone are the days, except for very, very small portions of the pie here, where you'd be filling out a FAFSA manually. And so everyone needs to give consent on the FAFSA. And when FSA has walked us through this, they make it very, very clear, right? Even if you didn't file taxes, even if you do not have a social security number, you still need to provide your consent on the FAFSA. No consent means no financial aid. All right, this is this is an extremely important part of the process. If you don't provide consent on the FAFSA, you will not be eligible for federal financial aid. And so we really do think that the early FSA ID creation will help on this side, right? Because it gives you a chance to walk through kind of like fear, confusion about like being audited. Being audited has nothing to do with the FAFSA, right? These are two completely different pieces, right? So you'll have to kind of put parents, guardians, spouses, students' minds at ease about this idea that you're not going to be audited, or you're not going to wind up, quote unquote, in trouble, right? As because you provided consent to federal student aid to get your tax information for purposes of the FAFSA. Role-based completion, again, the piece that I really just want to hammer here is that this is a part where we have siloed off different portions of the FAFSA form according to a contributor's role. So a student is only going to see the information they're supposed to see. They're not going to see the information that the parents put in, and vice versa. I don't believe the parents are going to see what the student puts in either, right? For things like demographic questions, which are now being asked. So at the end of completing your role-based section of the FAFSA, you sign the FAFSA, and then the system will now like give the student a notification: this person has signed, like this portion of the FAFSA is completed. You have, this contributor still needs to complete, right? You still need to complete. It just kind of gives you an update as people go, but you won't be able to see the full information on the form. Okay. So this is a little bit what I'm talking about in terms of what you actually see at the end of the process, right? So when a student submits the FAFSA, they will see the full confirmation with their SAI, with their estimated federal financial aid eligibility, right? With their estimated Pell Grant. But when a parent submits the FAFSA here, they're going to get a congratulations page. They're still getting congratulated, right? They still made it through the process. They should get the balloon animation. I have no idea if there's balloon animation. Please do not tell federal student aid that I said there'd be balloon animation. I think there should be, but I don't think there will be. But the student will also receive an email confirmation page. Again, the student is only going to get the SAI and the federal aid eligibility piece of this. Pell Grant calculations. Okay, I'm rounding into home. That's good. All right, so there's two ways now to be eligible for the Pell Grant. This is about as in the weeds as I'm going to get with you on this process. But I realize that the amount of a Pell Grant that a student can be awarded is of some considerable import to the folks on this call. So here's how we do this. So first, we're taking the adjusted gross income, family size, and family status, and comparing that to federal poverty tables, right? And so kind of triangulating those things against the federal poverty tables determines, are you eligible for a maximum Pell Grant in this award year, right? Is your income, family size, family status low enough to kind of give you that auto zero, 0 to negative 1,500 student aid index that would just automatically result in you getting a maximum Pell Grant? Or conversely, right, is your AGI, family size, and family status high enough that you are just qualifying for the minimum Pell Grant, right? So this kind of gives you a binary outcome. Either you're eligible for the maximum or the minimum, just based on the federal poverty tables. For anything in between, we have to go and look at what your actual student aid index is, right? And there is not yet an SAI lookup table. We suspect that one will probably be produced by a national organization or states even. But looking up the SAI within the maximum and the minimum between them will determine grant size there. There are no more Pell tables, okay? Along with ESC, this is a thing that is going away. You can, I don't know, frame your Pell table as a historical artifact now at this point. But your Pell Grant is now going to equal your maximum Pell for a given year minus whatever the FAFSA tells you your SAI is, and then rounded to the nearest $5. When you get that FAFSA submission summary and it tells you what your student aid index is, if you have an SAI of 0 to negative 1,500, you're going to get the maximum Pell Grant that is available for that award year. Okay. Ooh, it's been a whirlwind tour. Okay. I want to zoom out from the wonkery and the details, and I have tried to keep this lighthearted throughout. I want to be very serious about this because it's something I take really seriously as a professional responsibility, and it's something that everyone here at NCAN takes very seriously as a mission-driven organization. We really are all in this together. I want you to hear that. I want you to really start believing it. And I want you to act on it, okay? That means reaching out to people like Graciela and Jennifer, to me, to each other, okay? There are a lot of resources out there. I'm gonna show you NCAN's Better FAFSA toolkit in just a second, right? But in the face of something this daunting, and it is daunting in the sense that if you think about this, every single school counselor, financial aid administrator, college access advisor, and other caring adults who help with a FAFSA every year, we have to relearn this together this year in a very condensed period of time. That doesn't, the magnitude of that doesn't escape anyone here at NCAN. I don't suspect it escapes anyone on this call. And it's very easy to feel like, it's very easy for that to feel like a lonely process, right? If you're feeling overwhelmed in your position. And I totally understand that. But I just want to make sure that you hear that there are lots of resources out here in terms of knowledge, in terms of people who can answer your questions, who are willing to give you their time, and who are willing to just kind of like listen about how frustrating and overwhelming this might be over the next few months, right? So we really are in this together. If you take nothing away from the entirety of my presentation today, please know that there are resources out here and that we're going to kind of get through this together as a field, okay? All right, with that said, I do have a list of things that we could be doing this fall. It sounds like many of you have already been doing for the FAFSA. We're just supporting students and families creating FSA IDs, about thinking about CSS profiles or other institutional forms that may be available, right, for completion now. Again, identifying special or unusual circumstances for students, connecting them with resources or letting them know that they are a student who is going to fall under the Better FAFSA's unusual circumstances provisions, and then encouraging scholarship applications, right? Using this time to assist students with getting access to other financial aid sources. I want to share NCAN's Better FAFSA website here, which we have been working very hard to populate with all kinds of resources. We have an awareness toolkit here. This is for, and I want you to just take this and blast it out however you want to. Modify it, put your logo on it, take the copy from it. We're not proprietary about that, right? We have this awareness toolkit that has resources where we don't want you to reinvent the wheel. We also have a training toolkit where you can find out, all kind of the how-tos and get the infographics and the fact sheets. We have an FAQ here, right, that has a lot of the information that I probably just talked about, but is a very handy resource. NCAN has a bunch of free training opportunities around this, right? We've been putting out webinars every month. Okay, we would love to see you there. Please come on by. Usually our webinars are members only. We've kind of opened them up more broadly here because, again, we recognize the need here for really high quality training. Okay, let me go back to this and I will stop talking at you in just a second. Q&A. Okay, super. So I think I have left a few minutes. I also do not have a hard stop at 2:30. So I can stay past 2:30, although I understand if you can't. Let me just say thank you very much for your time and attention. Again, my email address is at the front end of this deck. And if you have any questions at all, please do reach out to me. If I can't answer your questions, I will surely do my best to find you someone who can.
Yeah, feel free to take yourself off mute and ask your question.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Well, I know Dr. Murphy said Bill is going to be coming to Arizona, or is he zooming into Arizona? So
no, he is coming to Arizona.
I'm coming. I'll be there. I'm coming
live and in person.
I'll leave the wool jacket at home this time, I think.
I have a question, and you may not be able to answer this. It's Barb Dwyer from Highland High School here in Gilbert, Arizona. ASU is probably one of our, well, it is our most populated university that our kids go to. And I know this has to impact all three of our universities. It's their deadlines, right? So like, I think of like the Obama scholarship that is January 15th. Have you heard anything down the line of other pivots and adjustments that are going to be made for these students based upon, I mean, I don't think they're going to get their FAFSA submission summary in time. I mean, maybe, but I mean, I'm kind of anticipating some difficulties with the website and reports coming through. I just don't know if you've heard anything.
I think kind of the most updated information that we've heard from particularly ASU is that they will make any necessary decisions about adjustments in deadlines once the FAFSA is actually released. So I know that that's not very clear and that's not very definitive, but that's kind of the messaging that they've been pushing out. Is they recognize that it is, ultimately if it comes out on the 31st, that's what, 15 days, and so I think that that's been the consistent messaging that we've heard specifically from ASU. And Abigail, I know you're on this call, so if you've heard anything different, I'm trying to be as general as possible.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. We, as a matter of fact, had that same conversation earlier as soon as we got the message as well. And so we haven't heard anything as of yet. We do know that we are anticipating that there will be some considerations given the late, it opening up so late. So we are going to share that information out as soon as we know. And hopefully we do have those considerations. I know it's 14 days, but really, if you think about it, the holiday plus, we really want that FAFSA to be on file prior to the deadline. So really, we're talking about like 12 days, right? So yeah, we'll definitely communicate out when we know if there are going to be any changes. Great question.
And just to kind of also add this to the mix, the AZCAN, or excuse me, the FAFSA kickoff and AZCAN launch on December 1st, which Bill will be at. We have TRIU doing a session, so they'll be talking about kind of some next steps. And then we also have a moderated panel during the lunch session that will be 3 of our financial aid leadership individuals, so one from each of the 3 institutions, who will be kind of talking through some of the what to expect, next steps, packaging pieces, things of that nature. So I'm sure that there will be some pretty insightful information shared there. Other questions for Bill?
Yeah. Bill, thank you for sharing that Arizona specific data to see that we're growing. I know when we look at our ranking nationally, it can get a little like, oh no, but to see the actual growth that's happening in our state, I think that's amazing when we look at how we're growing as a state when it comes to overall FAFSA completion. And when we look at that ranking, Arizona is even higher on the board and the growth that we've done collectively as different nonprofits, universities, colleges, educational partners just working together to collectively connect with different students to let them know the opportunities and the value of FAFSA completion and what that brings. So thank you for sharing that at the beginning of your presentation. Everyone, this recording is being recorded. If you would like to look at our past items on Dr. Murphy's website or my Ask Benji website, we do have the Tri-University. We will add this one shortly when this is done, and I will send out the slide decks to everyone who's RSVP'd. And if you didn't, you can let me know and I'll send it to you directly. And yep, there's our toolkit once again. Thank you so much, and I will stop recording. And someone asked, Benji is updating at FAFSA questions as we learn them. Every NCAN event we go to, Lizette and I will talk about what we need to update on the Benji chatbot. So if you're in the chatbot, right now we have some of the old information because we have students who are still filling out the current FAFSA application, and they can still fill that out because it's currently active. And we also have information for the new FAFSA one. So some of our chatbot questions are even interactive, where we're asking them which application they're filling out so we can give them the correct answer since we're in this middle of the road transition. So that's it.